Man, it's been a long time since I've had to specifically build for a monster to feel the threat that I actually need to change up what I'm doing in order to counter this threat. I got a bit of it with Arch-Tempered Raydao, but I didn't really enjoy that fight. But these fights, well, specifically Seregios, I really do. So let's get into it. And hey, if you enjoy this kind of content, let me know down in the comments below, give this video a like, and subscribe for more. Let's do this. So let's start off by talking about Steve himself. I think it underlines a really interesting strategy that Capcom are doing here with their title updates. Essentially what they've done is they've given us 3 monsters that probably could have been introduced as part of the base game, and I understand if that is a contentious point for you. I'm not here to try and tell you that's wrong. But what it does mean is that these title monsters aren't just endgame elder dragons like we got in World. It means that if you are starting again from fresh, as you progress to high rank, you get these as additional encounters, and they're not too hard in that sense. It really starts to get difficult at 8 stars, and of course we'll get onto that soon. Seregios. In the pantheon of flagship monsters, it is rather understated, isn't it? I was watching a Max stream, Maximilian dude, and he didn't actually realize that Seregios was a flagship monster, and I don't blame him. He does just feel like a bit of a mid-tier monster that has a bit more extra personality onto him. Because I mean, when you think about the flagships that we've had, most of them are pretty larger than life. Think about Glavenus, think about Nergigante, Gormagala. Now he is a statement piece. And then we take that to an extreme with some of them that seem to be just a bunch of ideas super glued together into some try-hard, over-designed mess. I am of course talking about Magnamalo, who I hope we never see again. Although he would potentially look really cool here in Wilds, but I don't want him back. He's got too much. He's just too much. He's too many things put together. Why does he fly? Anyway, this is about Seregios. Let's get back to that. I believe I'm right in saying that when he was introduced in 4 Ultimate, Seregios brought with him the bleed status, and he was the only monster I think that did that in that game, whereby just if you got it, just moving causes you to take damage. But there's all sorts of funny ways of countering the bleed. If you haven't prepped for bleed, then what you need to do is crouch, and that leaves you vulnerable. And the perfect thing about bleed is when you think about the monsters that have got it since then: Seregios, Erdagaran, Behemoth, new school versions of Nagakuga. They're all extremely frantic, aggressive monsters that require you to stay on the move, and because you're on the move, you're taking more damage. It's important to bring up because when we get into the 8-star Seregios, it becomes really important as to why it made me feel something. Seregios' movements are very much unique to him, aren't they? He has the shape of a typical flying wyvern, but his motions are swooping and soaring, fast-paced. He is frantic and scrappy, and they've certainly represented that well here. He now has his own zoom out move where he just piles into the ground. That looks great. And it's not overblown, like he piles into the ground and then there's explosions everywhere and it's a supernova, because not everything needs a supernova. It's great that monsters have their zoom out move to give a bit of gravitas, and it's great that monsters also have big hard hitting moves that leave them vulnerable, and I like that. We'll get onto that soon. Also love the attention to detail that he'll literally pick up herbivores and throw them at you. He's had a glow up with his moveset and his looks as well, and that can't be said about everything. I don't know about you, but Gormagala to me looks off in this game. He looks smudgy and like they're allergic to vibrance. Then in Sunbreak, he looked meh. Anyway, this video is not about him, although it's clear that Wilds is a very 4 Ultimate coded game. Which reminds me, like, Seregios got the Frenzy in 4 Ultimate. They could have easily brought that back. We literally have the Frenzy in this game, and they so underutilize it. It's just on one specific map where some low tier monsters get the frenzy and then Gormagala is also there. I expected there to be some sort of mechanic. We get frenzy crystals. Anyway, there's a rant for another time. But you know what really stands out to me? He shimmers. I've never really thought of Seregios as an appealing looking monster, but now he is. He looks stunning. It's the shimmer, man. It's the glisten, it's the glow, it's the way his scales reflect the light. And then we got the armor and weapons. The weapons keep changing how they actually mechanically work. Back in 4 Ultimate, it was the case that if you dodged a number of times, you'd recover some of your sharpness. And that was so good with the Greatsword. I loved the Greatsword in that game. Then in Sunbreak, they took that and they put it on his armor set and made it so that you had to dodge through an attack to get that sharpness back. Now into Wilds, and we got a strange mix that kind of pays tribute to the original, but does its own unique thing. You get special sharpness on the weapons. The special sharpness is only a short amount, but it does give you a boost beyond the normal power buff of white sharpness. In fact, it even gives us a power buff beyond the boost of normal purple sharpness, which we don't even get yet until master rank. And sure, the armor set isn't meta, but it's really fun, and I recommend people give it a go. And besides, this is definitely my new favorite armor in the game. Look at this. Look at it with your eyes. Look at it. So shiny. But all things considered, the Seregios we meet in high rank is pretty easy to beat. Enter 8-star Seregios. You guys said that you wanted harder hunts? Are you happy now? He does attack quicker, right? I'm not just imagining that. It feels like he attacks quicker. That there's actually less gaps between his attacks. It's great to see that 8-star tempered monsters actually get some particular attention. Now, I'm a Lance main, and if you don't play Lance, you might think, oh, it's a bit of a cozy weapon, you can just hide behind your shield. That is not always the case, and a great example of that is here. If you try and just regularly guard all of his attacks, you'll just get chipped to within an inch of your life. And it doesn't just stop there either. If you do muck up, he can apply bleed very quickly, and that's why I wanted to bring in that discussion about bleed earlier. With the Lance, you have a very slow sheath time, and when you think about how frequently he's attacking, sure, you might get a moment after an attack to try and sheath so that you can sort out your bleed, but by the time that you've sheathed and you're reaching for your item or trying to crouch, he's already attacking you again. Oh, especially if you get the bleed and then you have to block through a bunch of attacks, which just further increases the damage you're taking. And after triple carting solo to the 8-star tempered Seregios, I found myself going to that old, familiar thought. Back in Iceborne, I had loads of specialized sets, specialized loadouts, anti-raging Brachydios, anti-Rajang, anti-this, that and the other. Armor sets that were specifically designed to counter monsters where I knew I needed that extra bit of help, that extra bit of preparation. I knew that with the way that I play with Lance, I could not afford to take the bleed. So first thing I did was I had to put on bleed resistance. Was that enough? No, but it certainly did help. I mean, imagine that, having to actually prepare for a hunt. Crazy, right? And here it is, my anti-Steve set. And as you can see, it's not your typical 4 parts Gormagala whatever meta build. And I was having to think about how we mitigate the chip damage, because we don't have health regen augments now. So I need health from somewhere. I can't just rely on my cat, because by the time I'm almost dead, he's probably in his hot air balloon for some reason, caught up trying to do Ratha Meow. That is such an annoying move. So I've got 2 parts of Numinous, that's from the Zoshia set, and that just means that you can recover health a little bit beyond your regular red portion, And if you do manage to avoid damage and chip damage, then that can really help keep you in the fight longer without having to risk sheathing to try and heal your health. And then I was playing about with the Arc Vulcan pieces. These are the bits from the Guardian Arc Veiled armor. I was hoping that these would give me a bit more health regen, and they probably do. It's just hard to notice. But I figured maybe every little helps with this fight, right? Offensive guard 3, guard 3, guard up 3, because I've got the Lagiacrus lance here. Normally if the move you require guard up for is a pin, then you don't take much damage, but this move does so much damage, so guard up 3 definitely helps if you can't quite react fast enough to counter it. My thunder resistance is up so that I can buff the damage on my Lagiacrus lance, and I've got maximum might and agitated just as some power. I think I'm using this Mizutsune coil just for the slots. Yeah. And it doesn't just stop there either. He's got particular attacks that you've got to be prepared for and got to have a strategy for. He's got this quadruple swoop attack that if you just try and blindly guard through it, you'll end up getting chip damage to within an inch of your life. So I found out that I have to try and perfect guard the first two, because then you mitigate the chip damage there. Then I try and charge counter the third, and then I try and guard dash backwards for the fourth, which means I still take some chip damage, but I've only taken chip damage from one attack there. So that's not the end of the world. I'll take that trade-off and land near his feet where he'll have a wound available after that attack. So it makes for this cool strategy for that hunt. It's not just strategizing before the hunt, it's also strategizing during the hunt. And it requires you to have good reflexes and a calm nerve to be able to pull that off. Now, to be honest with you, I'm not the kind of person who normally goes in for really hard games. But I don't mind it in circumstances like this, where to me, it's not particularly BS. It just means that you've got to strategize and think about the fight more, and it makes it more rewarding, and this armor is definitely worth it, even just visually. I love it, man. The only last thing to say is, why is he no longer an invading species? I was really looking forward to that. I don't think it should just be the flagship that can appear on any map. Would have liked for him to appear in other places. Then he could have appeared in the cliffs, and then you could have had him be frenzied. Imagine that. Imagine an 8-star tempered frenzied. He'd have lower health, but man, he'd hit so hard. Wouldn't that have been cool? If only. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Seregios in Monster Hunter Wilds. Hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you've enjoyed the approach I've taken to this video. A bit more relaxed, a bit less scripted. I've just got some bullet points here. I just want to set myself up to be able to respond to things going on in the community in Monster Hunter without having to overly edit and script everything. Well, take care wherever you are and whatever you're doing. I'll catch you on the other side.